This is a very embarrassing problem. The lower air dam on my 3rd gen CTS is literally tearing away from the bumper. What can you do about it and what caused it? I covered this in a previous video, but that method just didn't work, so I deleted that video. I've got a new plan. We'll talk about it and I'll show you how it's done, so keep watching. So what exactly is going on here? Well, when running an aftermarket splitter on this car, this area just wasn't designed to have downforce. And so the splitter puts a little extra force there, and over time it may start to tear this. Now, I have polled people and it's not always a splitter. Some people have said it's happened without a splitter, maybe from hitting parking curbs or something, which I've done more of since this started sagging it down. Now, I had another video and I showed you that these cracks were starting and I wanted to prevent them from happening further, but I don't like support rods. Those are a little too sporty for my Cadillac, so I showed you a method using hardware store turnbuckles and hooking them to these little plastic loops up here, and I should have known. Those plastic loops weren't up to the job. After visiting Buttonwillow Raceway last year, doing 125 miles an hour multiple times per lap, over the day, about 60 laps, that was too much. The forces pulled down on this and it tore away those loops, and now it's worse. I actually stopped my sessions so it wouldn't get any worse than this, because once this rips off, folks, the car may not be drivable, as you'll have this flap just hanging out in the wind. Could be dangerous to you or others. So what's the plan? Well, the real plan is replacing the entire bumper cover. Unfortunately, it's gonna be $2,000 to $3,000. That's the only real fix for this, folks. But if this is starting and you wanna keep it from happening more, or you just wanna prevent it from happening at all, you might wanna run some sort of support method. You can do classic support rods, especially if you have a splitter, or you use the method I'm gonna try today. Again, not tested and tried, but I think it's gonna be better than the last one. Let me show you how I got my inspiration. This is my Porsche Cayman GT4, and like a lot of GT model Porsches, the aero on the car is fully functional, and this front splitter holds a lot of weight because it creates a lot of downforce. Now, I'm sure they have general structure in mind here for that, but there's one key feature that I think is doing a lot of the work, and I think we can adapt it to the CTS. It's right here. You see that? That is a steel cable, and it is fully tensioned, holding the weight of the splitter. I think I can do something very similar on the CTS, so let's go to the workbench and I'll show you what I have in mind.
So this is essentially what we're gonna build. It's a metal cable with a loop on one end and then a metal plate with a nut and bolt on the other end. The loop is made by using these ferrules. These are soft metal, and you wanna get the appropriate size for the cable you're using. You crimp them down on the wire using proper crimpers, but those are kind of expensive. I didn't have any, so I just used electrical crimpers. If you use the electrical ones, make sure you use a lot of force because you don't want this cable to slip. The other end is mounted to the lower splash shield. This plate is on the underside of the car. We essentially just run the bolt and the cable through our little mending plate with the hole in it, then wrap the cable around the bolt and then torque it down with the nut. And that should hold everything in place. The supplies you use don't have to be exactly like mine, just use what you can find that's similar. I'll put links in the description to similar items you can order on Amazon. But I used these mending plates. They're about 2.5 inches by 1.25 inches or so, and I drilled a hole appropriate to the size of bolt I want to use and the cable that has to go in the hole with it. The plate does have to be narrow enough to fit in this slot on the underbody splash shield at the front of the car. The bolt is only about 1 inch long. You don't really want it too much longer, and the cable is 1 millimeter, which I think is about 18 gauge. You'll of course need a compatible nut for that bolt and appropriate drill and drill bits.
All right, now that we have run over the tools that we're gonna use and the concept, let's install it on the CTS and see if it works.
First, let's talk about where we're gonna loop the cable. Go into your air dam area in front of the radiator. On the back of the crash bar, there's this metal tab right here. That is what we're gonna loop onto, so your loop needs to be big enough to hook onto that. It's also got this keyway built in, which is very interesting. I'm wondering if this concept was in mind in the first place. You could also not use a loop, but use a nut, washer, and bolt combo. This may work if you get it the right size. It can fit in there, lock it in, and wrap the wire around the bolt like we did at the workbench, and then torque it down with a nut. That may hold as well, and it's pretty easy to remove. But I'm going to use my loop method. This is what I've started with. Just hook it over the top and then pull it straight down. Find out where the cable comes straight through the bottom splash shield. It goes about right here. I did some measurements. It was about 7 inches for me, and I drilled a small hole using a pilot bit, and then I used a larger bit. Make sure you drilled not only through the plastic, but the rubber liner above. You need to run the cable through that hole, and if you removed it from your hook, go ahead and re-hook the loop up there. Now you have the cable hanging below. My lower air dam was sagging quite a bit, as you saw. Yours may not be this bad, but either way, you'll want to use a jack or anything you can find to push the lower air dam up a little bit, a little higher than the height you want it at. This will ensure that once you've tightened down the cable, it's gonna sag at least a couple millimeters, and when it does sag, it sags into the right position under tension. Take your bolt and put it through the hole alongside the cable. This is how it should look, and then you can see it come through the other side. Run the cable through the hole you drilled into the steel mending plate. It should fit right between the ribs of the splash shield. Next, wrap the cable around the bolt close to the mending plate. Make sure you turn it in the direction that you tighten the nut, or clockwise. This will ensure that when you tighten it down, it doesn't loosen the cable. Put your nut onto the bolt, and then we'll torque it down nice and tight so that cable doesn't go anywhere. I held the bolt at the top of the wrench and then used a socket and a ratchet to tighten down the nut. Now with everything installed, I'm going to release the jack, which will allow the air dam to hang tightly on that steel cable. It should be naturally trying to go down into its normal position like it is here with tension on the cable. You know you have good tension on the cable when it makes this sound.
All right, folks, that's it. I think it worked out pretty good. I mean, look how sturdy that is. That is great. This lip moves a little bit, but not much. And this, yeah, I like that. I wish I would have done this in the first place. The wire is just not that obvious. Just like on the Porsche, I don't think anyone's gonna notice it. And it's better than the last fix, that's for sure. So obviously, I'm no engineer. I already gave you one fix that didn't work, but this one I think is gonna be a little better. The only thing I'm worried about is the wire. I've bent it and unbent it a few times to get things straight, and it does weaken it. In fact, one piece sort of broke off, so hopefully the parts that I've used are not too weak and that they'll hold up. If not, I'll have to maybe use some fresh wire and try not to bend it around too much. Now, if you have any ideas on how this could be better, please let me know. Put it in the comments. And I do suggest you comment either way, because then you'll get updates when I comment on the video and tell you how this held up, or if I made any changes and improvements, because I probably won't make a whole new video about it again. Hopefully, instead, I'll just get a whole new bumper cover at some point, which needs to happen because this car is in beautiful shape, but yeah, this bumper, it's embarrassing. So if you like this video and you found it helpful, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and consider hitting the bell to be notified of future Cadillac content. Thank you so much for watching the Jeff Fueling channel. We'll see you next time.